to the camera. Welcome back, and thank you for being here. The students we meet are gems in the raw as they wait to be polished by us. The timid or the bold, the coarse in the mold, shine as a teacher's love unfolds. This session is about readiness, teacher readiness, student readiness, lesson readiness. This is a very difficult, it's a strange topic. It's an abstract topic. Some of it could be concrete, pretty tangible. But in general, it's an elusive topic. So let's dive right in. Readiness. Are we ready indeed to teach? Are we teacher ready? What does that mean? I go to school. I get started each day. I have seen teacher friends who come to school and have no idea what they were going to teach. They have admitted to me, I don't know what I'm teaching today, but I'm here. And in my mind, I couldn't understand how one could be comfortable not knowing what they were going to do. Here we have a commitment of individuals who know that they're going to meet 5 or 6 different groups of 30 children all through the day, and you're not ready. You're going to wing it. I couldn't understand that. They made it, and I imagine in the final analysis, the children did okay. That's not me. I needed personally to be ready. So I needed to have a good breakfast. I needed to feel comfortable. I had to wear comfortable shoes. I wore colors that were pleasing to me that day. You know, like whatever I wore, I had to be comfortable in. The personal side of it. Whatever I was doing, I always went to my classroom early in the morning to prepare, organize my desk, make sure my books were out, find my page, bookmark my page. My lessons were always prepared. In fact, my lessons were prepared 3 and 4 down the road. I knew if something happened today, what would I do tomorrow? If I didn't know where I was going with the lesson, I just didn't feel at ease in the classroom. So that involved lesson preparation to some extent, but my head needed to be so full of the lessons, be so completely sure in what I was going to do, that if the day turned out to be really odd, sometimes there were odd days, the principal called and said, oh, we have to have an assembly, unplanned. Someone was visiting, unplanned. We had to report there was going to be a fire drill. There are all sorts of things that interrupt your plans. But you, the teacher, had to know what you could do on a contingency basis to make up for the missing time or time that needed to be added. So you, the person, you had to be psychologically ready, physically ready, emotionally ready to take on this day, because this day could go any old way, any old time. So that had to do with teacher readiness. Now, here's another thing about teacher readiness. I met fellow teachers who would talk about not wanting to go beyond a certain grade. Once a teacher said to me, I never want to teach higher than third grade. I don't want to know all that algebra. And I said, what? That's crazy. At least you must know fourth and fifth. So while you're teaching, you could extend and share with the students where this can go when you got to fourth or fifth. You want to give them reason for the extension, for things you did in the classroom with the lesson, why they needed to get in tune with the lesson and, lockstep with the lesson. And that was the mind of some people. Wow. You needed to know the entire curriculum. You got to know what comes after this and next and the next thing and the next thing. Teacher readiness. Well, there's so many of us who are not ready, who really shouldn't be in the classroom. I'm a teacher, I'm saying this. And there are some who are not in the classroom who really should be there. I've met a few of those. Now, what about student readiness? That's another nebulous area. We can't do very much about that. We have to take them as they come. But I'm sure that many of you know that your students are not ready for the learning process. They didn't get enough sleep. They didn't get enough food to eat. The house is in turmoil. It's disorganized. The bed's not made up. The kitchen's a mess. Mom is coming in from a night shift. Dad has left already. Children have to figure it out for themselves. The neighbor's going to pick them up. They got to wake up, get something to eat, get cleaned up, get dressed for school, and get to the car on time. The neighbor's coming to pick them up. Boy, if you have a neighbor coming to pick you up. Some kids had to find their way to school on their own. Once there was a little boy who came to school on his bicycle. And that was admirable. He rode to school on his bike. But one day as I was leaving school, I saw that same child way far away from school on his bicycle. I thought, oh, he just rides his bicycle everywhere. Where's he going? Who's watching him? Where are his parents? These are all the questions I'm asking. Who knows? Who knows how much supervision this child is getting? At least he came pretty much every day on his bicycle. Are the students ready to learn? Now, this is taking this from the learning experience. Did they get adequate learning from the last grade or the last lesson or the last teacher to continue into this grade? Are they ready that way? Wow. This is why when they sit in our classes and we start talking or doing a lesson, we hear some answers. Oh Lord, I got to do some work on that one. You go home with this child in mind because you can't proceed unless you take them aside and set some things in motion, lay a stronger foundation for your lessons. You're coming and doing higher order thinking and problem solving and this and that, and the basics they don't have. And that's one of the big dilemmas that teachers have. Many students don't have a good learning foundation. You've got to find a way to continue to teach them in spite of their deficit with which they come into the classroom, in spite of. because of. You have to find a way. That's the dilemma. So we can't assume that everybody's on the same page, because everybody is not. The teacher, therefore, has to find a way to deal with those who are below grade level, who are at grade level, who are above grade level, all in the same 55 minutes in grade 6 or grade 7 or grade 10 or wherever you are. You've got to find a way to deal with all the nuances of the learning process, of the child, of where they are, of their home life. Are they ready? I once had a student who came to school without good hygiene. What do we do? That student sat in class among others who knew that the hygiene wasn't good. That's all I need to say. What do we do? Teachers came together. We talked about it. We knew, you could figure it out. You could look at the hair, the clothes, you could smell. You could figure it out. We went to the principal, who was right on target. She was really good. She got that child out of class, and within 24 hours, I don't know how they did it. They never shared, and that was okay. We didn't have to know. We just saw the results. The child was cleaned up, and that made a world of difference for just that one child. 24 hours. Luckily, that child knew that if she got help, that would be a big hurdle that she would have mounted. And she accepted the help and just fell right into class. Whoa, we were happy that we were able to deal with that situation. How many others can you not deal with? I once had a student, I'm not going to say where I was. I once had a student who, I think, looking back on it, he was mentally disturbed. I was showing him how to work on something, and he looked up and gave me the weirdest look. He looked deep into my eyes for a long time. And what was the expression in his eyes? I read, "Leave me alone. I don't want you to tell me anything." That was what I got. That's exactly what I did. I reported the matter to my principal. He looked at me and said, "Oh, you too." I'm going, "Geez, you knew this? You haven't told us anything?" But he did share that other teachers complained about the look. They didn't understand it either. They just knew that they needed to back off. Within about 30 days, he was removed. I don't know where he went. We didn't ask any questions. We were all relieved. That was a child who was not ready for the authority or something. The lessons, the authority telling him what to do, it's all mixed up in whatever was going on in his brain. But thank goodness, his removal solved the problem for us. Student readiness, one of the most difficult areas to conquer. We have to go out there and, like real foot soldiers, do the best we can every moment of every day, just never giving up, never giving up. And now, lesson readiness. If we're not prepared and our students are not prepared, If we're not ready, if our students are not ready, I don't care how good the lessons are, they're not going to do a thing. We've got to have all three in place, the three things in place. The teacher has to be ready. The student has to be ready. The lessons have to be ready. We can work on ourselves. We can work on the lessons. Now let me spend a little time on this lesson readiness. We must know our curriculum, really know it. Our first year as a teacher, no. We're just going with the flow. That's okay. Second year, we're doing a little bit more of that. What our administrators have to do is to leave people where they feel comfortable for a while. So they get used to that curriculum and they get it under the belt and they can do it with their eyes closed. That's your ease. You got to get comfort with the curriculum. And the more comfortable you are, the more you can tackle the more difficult issues. But we teachers must also be aware that there are some lessons with which we don't feel comfortable, and we must really strive hard to overcome the difficulty in those lessons. There are some. What was it for me? I had the least comfort with the difficult aspects of probability. Some probability was just ridiculous. And then I went to a seminar and I listened to someone who simplified some of those difficult aspects of probability. The counting principle. There was actually a way to get around the counting principle without counting. Whoa. You know, it's interesting. Once I got that, I decided I'm going to teach probability earlier in the year and revisit it twice a year. Because in the textbook, it's way down at the end of the curriculum. Not good. Because some standardized tests could have very difficult questions about probability. And yet, some standardized tests have no questions about probability. We can simplify probability if we understand it well. But for some teachers, there are other areas where they have difficulty. Where teachers have difficulty or discomfort, those are the areas in which they must spend more time or seek help of another teacher. Teachers tend to isolate themselves. Not good. And the way life works in a school building, administrators don't give teachers time to talk to each other. They leave you there hanging by yourself, particularly in South Florida. Not so in Maryland and the District of Columbia. In the District of Columbia, at the Catholic school, they held a teacher retreat once a year for a day. It was prayerful, but it was also an opportunity to talk about what you did in the classroom and what your plans were for yourself and for your students. They didn't do lessons. They looked at it from a very personal perspective. You, the person, and the child. One year on a retreat, the theme was, see the Christ in this child. It's a Catholic school, but I'll tell you, I left with that and applied that learning in every school for every child. We had a project. We had to work on our own, no partners, no talking to each other. The project was to think of the worst child in your class. Just think, no writing, no talking. Conjure up the worst adjectives about this child. And we did that for 10 whole minutes. That was a long 10 minutes. And then we had to come up with the best part of the same child, because that was the Christ in that child. What was loving? What was decent? What was kind? What was giving? What was forgiving about this child? And then when we did that, we were asked to replace all the negative thoughts with all those Christ-like thoughts about that child. I left with that. I was just humbled by the experience. But that experience actually made my teaching career better than it otherwise would have been without the experience. So, teacher readiness, student readiness, lesson readiness. We can be ready for that student in a way that paves the way and gives the student a better chance of success when we are totally prepared with ourselves, emotionally, psychologically, and academically, and with our lessons in order to do the best for the student. And I thank you. Thanks for your questions. Bye-bye.